Hi, everyone. You're watching episode 95 of Yield TV. Hey, thanks for joining us. It's Tuesday, April 6th, 2021. We are honored to host today Fulvia Morales. She is a product manager at 0x Labs. She is the product manager. Fulvia has actually worked with our team at Zapper for the last year, just because so many of our products are powered by the 0x API. And in DeFi, product managers, in my opinion, they're one of the most important roles. It's the folks that are really defining the future of all of the products that we use. And so I thought Fulvia could share all sorts of interesting and helpful insights for all of us that are looking to the future of DeFi. So on that note, Fulvia, welcome to Yield TV. How are you doing?
Great. Thanks for inviting me. We've been talking about doing this episode for a while, so I'm glad we're finally here.
I finally tricked you to come on. Yeah, she can attest. I've like slacked her once a month, being like, "Hey, is there anyone at 0x that wants to come on? But really, you should just come on." So here we are. Fulvia, why don't we start with the usual origin story? Everyone wants to always learn, how did you find yourself in the crypto space? How did you discover 0x? And I guess ultimately, how did you end up where you are today?
Yeah, it's a bit of a long story. I'll try to make it short. But yeah, I started my career in traditional finance, working for strategy in Citi, in Mexico and Latam. And since the early days of my career, I had a natural interest in financial inclusion and financial equity. So after a few years, I took a sabbatical and moved to Ecuador to work in microfinance. And at the time, microfinance was believed to be the most effective, or one of the most effective ways to lift people out of poverty. And it is a wonderful tool and has positively impacted, a lot of people, especially women. But the longer I was in the space and in the ground working with families receiving microloans, the more I realized it was not the be-all and end-all solution to poverty that many people thought. So I went through a bit of an existential crisis, and while I was going through that, the Bitcoin paper found me. I like to say that it found me and not I found it. But yeah, basically I ran into the Bitcoin white paper, and to be honest, the aha moment didn't come right away to me. Yeah. I found the ideas interesting, but it was hard for me to grasp what we could build with the underlying technology and the practical use cases for it. And at the time, it was also kind of shady. None of my friends or the people that I knew what I was talking about. So yeah. I kind of kept reading about it, and started going through the rabbit hole of economics and all these different areas that Bitcoin basically touches on. So once I realized the opportunity that this technology brings to disrupt financial services and financial equality, I could not stop thinking about it. I went back to fintech for a little bit. It wasn't really like fintech back then. The term did not even exist. And then I decided to finally join crypto full-time in 2017 when I joined Bitso, which is the largest exchange in Latam. That was right before the ICO boom and obviously right before the 2018 crash. So I kind of went through that whole thing. But yeah, been in the space since then. As for 0x specifically, I found about the project in 2017 with the ICO and working at a centralized exchange at the time. To me, the idea of decentralized exchange was fascinating, both from a user perspective and a builder. So yeah, when they open up some roles for product management, I was really excited to join the team. And yeah, here I am about a year and a half later.
Can you talk about that transition coming from Bitso to working on 0x? Because I remember in 2017 learning about 0x, and I think it is fair to say now that the team was thinking far ahead of where the market was at. Yeah. I listened to Will Warren, who's the, in case anyone doesn't know, he's the founder of 0x, and I was really struggling to keep up with it, and I was pretty far down the rabbit hole. But he was thinking, far in advance about DEXs and just the future of what is now known as DeFi. So anyways, back to you. Can we talk about that transition and maybe a bit about the journey through the bear market and how that's all led to today?
I don't know if that's gonna be fun to hear, but yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, building in crypto, and DeFi specifically, to me, is incredibly exciting. And I can only imagine how, maybe the people building in the early days of the internet felt like a similar way, because the technology is so new and it's evolving incredibly fast. And at the same time, you still need to make sure that what you're building is solving real problems and is meeting user needs, et cetera, et cetera. I agree with you that back in 2017, the idea of 0x and more broadly the idea of decentralized exchange was fascinating, but it felt like it was still ahead of time, because at the time, even centralized exchanges for crypto were still kind of nascent, right? And they were still going through this phase of early growth. And I think that was true for across all regions and for many centralized exchanges. So when we talk internally and we're talking to Will and Amir and we're looking at some of their old presentations and we see them talking about this tokenized world back in early 2017 or early 2018, now it looks like, Jesus, they are just visionaries, because DeFi didn't even exist at the time, right? Like, it was a very early stage. So PMing at the end of the day is not too different for me. Obviously, working, I think, at 0x and DeFi more broadly comes with its own set of challenges, because, as I said, it's very nascent technology, is very new. It's still very evolving. And at the same time that you're building it, you need to make sure that it's built for the users and with the users front and center, right? So at 0x, I mean, we've made some mistakes in the past where our technology was great from a technical standpoint, but people, or like the developers, were not there. They were not ready to build with it, right? They were not ready to launch products and onboard the next set of crypto users. So it's exciting. It's also it comes with very specific challenges that you might not see working in crypto in like the more how do I say this, like more centralized in a way side of crypto, more like the fintech type of
Right.
products or projects. But yeah, it's still quite exciting to me.
Before we talk about, I think, a day in the life of being a PM at 0x, let's talk about 0x a sec. What do you do at 0x? In case anyone's new to learning about it, some have probably heard of the token behind the protocol, which is ZRX. But yeah, tell us more about what sorts of products you work on.
Yeah, so let me take a step back and first talk a little bit about what 0x is, in case some people that are listening to us are not super familiar with us. 0x is a decentralized exchange protocol. It's more akin to a central limit order book, so more similar to a centralized exchange in the sense that it connects orders on both sides of the order book. So basically connects buyers and sellers. And as a protocol, we started as a protocol in 2017. And now we've evolved and we've been building our tech stack. So we also have 0x API. So one of the problems that decentralized exchange protocols started facing was that liquidity was getting fragmented. And as a solution to that, we built 0x API, which basically aggregates liquidity across 0x open order books, decentralized exchange protocol, as well as a bunch of other protocols like automated market makers like Uniswap, SushiSwap, Kyber, Bancor, Curve, etc., etc. So that you can imagine that if the 0x protocol is the base layer of our building, we have 0x API on top of that. And then more recently, last year, we also started building user-facing products, and the first one that we built is Matcha. So Matcha is the top layer of our stack. It's built on top of 0x API, and it's an easy way for new people coming into crypto or people already using DeFi products to do trades. So that's 0x, and yeah, like for starters. I personally work with the 0x API teams, but in reality, all of our stack is very connected because they depend on each other. And yeah, our team is incredibly focused on building out Xerix API and Matcha as well.
Yeah. Matcha was, I think, a big inflection point from the outside, because, I mean, as far as we had come with DeFi by 2020, when you guys released Matcha, that for me was like, oh wow, like I forgot, how powerful the underlying tech is, and I just started to use Matcha as a DEX aggregator. It's also, in case anyone's wondering, it's Matcha, match.xyz, which also it will give you the same results as what you'd get at Zapper.fi/exchange, because we use 0x API, but it's worth noting it's one of the prettiest interfaces in all of DeFi. And so anyways, I guess my point being is, you all, like many other DeFi teams, you took what was powerful, you built a product, and you sort of showcased it. And then we had this Cambrian explosion of new products. Like, I think now you're probably not struggling to find builders, but it was a really smart move, especially in 2020. So we covered sort of that trajectory of like 2018 to 2020, some of the like highlights. Do you recall like what were some of the hardest times during that, like, that bear market that we all lived through? I think we all tend to focus on the successes. We love to highlight those, but really, I think sometimes the challenges that people overcome really are what help to inspire the next, generation of builders.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, I think no one likes to talk about like the struggles, but I mean, I've been through various cycles, and as a builder, this was kind of like my first and a half cycle. And it was tough, right? Like, you are putting your focus and all your attention in building something because you believe in this bigger mission, but at the same time, people are leaving the space because they got burnt out, or a lot of people lost a ton of money, and they didn't want to hear about it anymore. So I mean, it was tough to see friends leave the space, but at the same time, I think it bonded like those of us who stay even more, like, and it kind of like bonded us in the way that, like, we're all here for a similar reason, and we believe in the mission, and we're building together, and we're not going to give up on this mission. So I think that was kind of like the silver lining. But yeah, for sure there were struggles at Xerix AP, like at Xerix specifically. I think on one hand, we had like really good technology that from a technical standpoint was really good, but developers were flocking out, or a lot of them were leaving, or some of them that were staying but to build their own things, and we were struggling with that. If you're familiar with how central limit order books work, one of the biggest components for that is bringing in institutional traders, right, or professional market makers. So if there was no demand, it was really hard to attract those market makers. So we also struggle with that. And then we kept working on it and iterating and figuring out, addressing those issues and figuring out solutions to those problems. And then eventually we reached a point where we realized that, okay, we already have, the very basis of like having good pricing, having good liquidity, but now we need to focus on developer experience. And that kind of like is the reason why we launched Xerix API in 2020. Because we wanted to build a product that enables DeFi teams to build better products and offer better user experiences by making access to this liquidity, which is something that we had, historically been struggling with. In order to interact with Xerix, you had to interact with our smart contracts directly, and that was obviously a high barrier for entry for a lot of developers. So we wanted to address that. And then when we built API, initially we had the issue of, as you said, teams were not really seeing value in building with Xerix API. And so we decided to build Matcha. And when we built Matcha, it's kind of like the aha moment for everyone. And everyone wanted what Matcha had, even though it had been there for like a few months, right? So I think this is I think this is, perfectly normal when you're building with new technology, and we are creating the future as we go. So I think that's perfectly normal. But yeah, in the bear market, obviously you have the added pressure of all the external factors going on in the ecosystem. So the biggest challenge is to remain focused and really have like strong convictions on the mission and why you are here, and what brought you to this space in the first place.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons our space has grown so quickly. There is almost like a cult-like alignment of beliefs and why we're all here. I know, like, we're not there yet to really creating a world where DeFi is accessible to all. That's the goal for all of us. But there's something about, again, it's the mission, and then there's no doubt capital. The fact that everything is tokenized in our space, capital really coordinates more people better than anything else.
Yeah.
Before we talk a bit more about, I did want to like dive into like just like your day to day as a product manager. Like maybe you can tell us a little bit about, again, the evolution over the years, because again, it's a role that a lot of teams are hiring for, including yours. So we want to remind everyone, if you are looking for a role as a product manager, you should look at 0x.org. But I wanted to just quickly show off a few of the examples we benefit from by using 0x API. So let me just share my screen. This will be like 60 seconds because we don't want to bore in here. Here we go. Okay, so we're at, let me just flip here to, we're at Zapper.fi/exchange. So this is one of our tools, our tabs on Zapper. And so this is a DEX aggregator that's powered by 0x API. So this, I'm not going to speak as like a designer or as a developer, but I can attest that this was a product we were able to spin up very quickly to offer to our users who were already benefiting from the dashboard. So you can see here, just basically you put in, like with any swap, what do you have, and then what do you want? And then you can see here, if I were to swap, I tried to put in some bigger numbers just to give an example of the type of liquidity you can work with. It's pretty cool because 0x API then shows me that I'm going to get 41% of it drawn from the 0x network, along with this from Kyber and this from SushiSwap. So anyways, that was 0x API powering Zapper Exchange. And then the other part of it that a lot of people might not realize is that let's pretend that I was going to get into a liquidity pool like wrapped Bitcoin and Ether. If I start with, let's say, DAI, you can start with any token you want as long as it's supported on Zapper. What happens is, before we deposit the money into the liquidity provision, we actually pre-swap out the DAI for a 50-50 provision of wrapped Bitcoin and Ether. And again, that's all powered by the 0x API. We used to do it with Uniswap. There was lots of limitations with liquidity, despite all the liquidity Uniswap has. Now we draw upon the 20 plus sources of liquidity, however many there are through the 0x API. So Fulvia, anything to add there? I think I covered everything there in terms of. Oh, sorry, you're muted, Fulvia. Let's see if it comes back here. Connection is fairly, if you're on Wi-Fi, try one more time, Fulvia. Okay, yeah, your sound is going. It might just be your AirPods. There we go. I think it's working now. Oh no, it went back out. Let's see. Let's see if this now works. Oh, there we go. Hey, you're back.
Okay, let's hope it stays this way. Yeah,
you're all
awesome.
good. Just wanted to see, Fulvia, anything to add to just some of the examples of products that we've built with 0x API?
Yeah, I think like, well, first of all, we love working with the Zapper team, and the use case for the pools, for swapping in and out of the pools, is one of a very interesting use case we have for 0x API. One other use case I would like to highlight, besides what we've seen with the Zaps and the exchanging normal swap tab, is we actually have other teams, like for example DeFi Saver, that use a 0x API to basically protect their users from liquidations. So if you go to DeFi Saver, you can automatically or set up automation to protect your position when you take out a compound loan or a maker loan, or things like that. And then in the background, they use 0x API. So that, for example, when there's liquidations or when they're selling users positions, to automatically protect them from liquidations, they make sure that in that process, by using 0x API, their users get the best possible exchange rate. And one thing that differentiates 0x API from other aggregators, and that I think it's important to highlight, is our proprietary liquidity. So as you showed in that very big trade with 1,000 ETH, which I wish I wish we could all
I
make
wish I was
trades
trading
that.
that. Yeah. Notice
Yeah.
it said there was 2 ETH in there. I was like, I want to clarify. I do not have 1,000 ETH in a MetaMask wallet. So please don't ask me.
Yeah, but as you highlighted, we have our own proprietary liquidity that we aggregate along with all these other sources. But our proprietary liquidity, because we have professional market makers market making, they're able to provide very deep liquidity to the most popular pairs, including the stable coins or E2DAI, WBTC, that sort of thing. So it's really helpful when you are when you are building applications that require this kind of good prices. And in the case of DeFi Saver, for example, it's almost like an insurance that the trade it's going to go through, because if it's not going through, or if there's a high chance of the trade to fail, then they wouldn't be protecting their users as well as they are. So yeah, very interesting use cases that are being developed with 0x API, and yeah, looking forward to more and more getting built on.
Yeah, and if anyone is interested to build with 0x, just go to 0x.org and all their documentation is there.
Or just ping me on Twitter and I'll send you the doc.
That's right, because one of the parts of your job, I think you mentioned earlier, is you spend a lot of time talking with users and with builders. I'm curious, how do you synthesize your takeaways from all of that? Because it's definitely one part of the mission of a product manager I personally love. I could talk to people all day about what they were finding helpful or challenging in using a DeFi product. But one of the challenges in your role, I'd imagine, is, again, you have to take insights from that and then craft a roadmap for the product and advocate on the behalf of users, but also in the interest of the greater protocol. So anyways, yeah, how do you make sense of it all?
Yeah, I mean, that's the sauce of it, right? Like translating all these conversations. So rule number one of being a PM, it doesn't matter if it's in crypto or somewhere else, is talking to your users. At least for me, as a PM, like my kind of like my I don't know how to call it, but like my number one goal is to understand, what our users are struggling with, what their pain points are, what are they thinking of building next, to make sure, that we build things and grow and help them, that will help them grow and achieve their own mission. So that's rule number one for me. But the really meaty part of being a PM is how do you translate those conversations into actionable items and a roadmap and all these things that you were mentioning. So yeah, in DeFi it's kind of tricky because sometimes you talk to users and we are talking about things that don't exist yet. So we have to kind of understand what exactly are they trying to address, or what problem exactly they're trying to solve. and then take that and basically go back to the drawing board with the engineers and determine, like, is this something that we can do? Is this something that, we can address, and how do we address it from a technical standpoint? And then from that, if it's possible, then determining, like, what do we can we build this right away, or do we need to build something first, and then we start building out the roadmap from that. But yeah, the most interesting thing, in my opinion, is that you are building a lot of this stuff at the same time that that the users need, and that you're growing the space, which is really interesting and exciting and very different from what I've seen in other industries.
How about what do you think doesn't exist that needs to be built? And we can talk specifically about how you see it at 0x, but I would love to also talk more generally if there's other products that you think need to still be built in the DeFi space.
I think that we still need to build a lot of developer tooling, right? Like we have Ethereum has a very driving ecosystem, and probably one of the most vibrant developer communities across crypto and potentially across tech. But I think that the barriers for entry for a lot of developers, which are ultimately the people that will build the future with us, is still very high. So I think there's a lot of developer tools still missing that we still need to facilitate and build in order for us to bring more people, more builders into the space. So that's a big area where I think we still have a long way to go. And this is even more like true in other crypto ecosystems, in some of the more nascent communities like Binance Smart Chain, Polygon, etc., etc. So I think we still have a long way to go there, and I think we'll see a boom of developer tools in the near future.
Why don't we talk then about the rise of layer 2 and multi-chain DeFi? I guess, how are you all thinking about it at 0x? More recently, I know we just launched the DEX aggregator we showed earlier. That is available on Binance Smart Chain, and hopefully I'm not misspeaking on this, but I thought it's powered by 0x API, or at least
it is.
It is. Okay, good.
It is.
Woo, thank God. There we go. Just that note prepping. But yeah, so obviously we're already using a product that's helping us to offer up a multi-chain option for DeFi. But anyways, how are you all thinking about this?
Yeah. So we continue to be laser focused on building API and Matcha on Ethereum, but also we are increasing our focus to include other chains. So 0x API, as we've been talking, powers the top DeFi teams on Ethereum, like Zapper, MetaMask, DeFi Saver, Shapeshift, etc. And we want to bring the experience that our integrators know and love to developers building in other chains. So kind of like going back to this idea that I was telling you, that there's still even a higher or a bigger need for developer tools in more nascent developer ecosystems. So with this, we want to help our integrators and these developer ecosystems onboard the next 100,000 users to crypto. Of course, I mean, we've seen the debates on crypto Twitter. Many are skeptical of other ecosystems thriving outside of Ethereum. But I mean, we think that Ethereum will continue to serve as a nexus between decentralized finance and 0x protocol. But I also think that it's critical to recognize that we are seeing some use cases being priced out in Ethereum, right? And it's very hard for, I mean, and a lot of this, as we are aware, like a lot of this is being worked on from the technical standpoint. But I think like in the immediate, like we need immediate almost solutions, right? And we need to make sure that we don't leave out a lot of people that are just trying out DeFi, that are new to the space, if we truly want this technology to reach the broadest set of users. So ultimately, our mission at 0x is to create a tokenized world where all the value can flow freely. And we believe that exposing the broadest set of users to smart contracts, to self-custody, and to decentralized exchange markets is key to achieving that mission. So we want to meet the developers where they are, and we want to help them onboard, the next 100,000, 1 million users to crypto.
When you interview DeFi users, do you think that new users care as much about decentralization and security, or is there a focus on just fast, cheap transactions?
That is a great question. I think there's I've always thought that decentralization is a spectrum, and
Yeah.
that not all use cases require the same level of decentralization, and more than that, that not all users will care or will have different levels of interest and needs in terms of decentralization and self custody, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it depends a lot on the use case, on the user. I tweeted out yesterday that, for a very long time, I've thought that, users don't need to know that they're using crypto to benefit from that technology. But
Mm,
I do think that, for example, on the other hand, if a user cares enough about self-custody and decentralization, they will learn, how to use
that's
these
right.
products. And a lot of the UX, or what we see as UX hurdles today, will become second nature to many. So I
Yeah.
think, again, decentralization is a spectrum, and I think it will depend on who you ask, and what the use case is, et cetera, et cetera. I do think that Ethereum will probably remain the base of DeFi, but that we will see other ecosystems drive and have users, and even though they're not fully decentralized, some are going to be fully decentralized or more decentralized. But I think there's going to be use cases for pretty much everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for the users I've spoken with, if you're brand new to the space and you're just playing around, I mean, of course, you're just looking for, I think, cheap and fast. And
Yeah,
I want to clarify. I think that like worrying more about decentralization and security while I do it. I've been into Ethereum crypto for 3-4 years. I think it's a bit of a privilege that I can worry about that.
yeah,
I choose to only do a very small fraction of the DeFi I'll do outside of Ethereum because I worry about the assurance of having a claim on what I
yeah,
own there.
yeah,
And that's why I value Ethereum. But like you said, we need this more immediately, and I think when you try something like a true layer 2 solution, like I've used ZK Sync with Gitcoin grants, it's magical. You can just I contributed to like 100+ grants, and I think it cost me like $5 in fees,
yeah,
which actually was high compared to the last round. I've used side chains like Polygon. I've looked into BSC. I haven't actually used it yet. But anyways, I guess my point was this is we're going to get to that point sooner than I think people expect with true L2s that
yeah,
inherit the security of Ethereum layer 1, like Optimism and Arbitrum, versus I love the Aave Polygon market, but I'm not going to put the same amount of my own personal wealth into that on Polygon as what I would put into it on Ethereum. But what I just said is a very privileged statement. So
yeah. And
don't be afraid. Like, go try. Like you can. We'll have you with open, loving arms on Ethereum. But I know it's costly right now. It's brutal. Gas price
yeah,
200 gwei today.
and I think it's especially costly, like, for onboarding new users to crypto, right? Because, like, you and I have been here for a while. We care about self custody. We care about having being in control of our own funds, and
Yes.
these types of things. But imagine that you're just learning about this space, and I don't know, you have $100, $150
Exactly.
to try this out, and you're basically you can't do anything because that's how much fees cost right now. So I
Right.
think I agree with you that we're going to see a lot of these solutions much faster than we anticipated. I think we are testing, the how much um, how much we can pull Ethereum, and I think that we're going to see some of these solutions come to market a lot faster than a lot of us expected. But yeah, we still have to see that in production for many of these solutions, and to make sure that they work as expected. And I'm sure that even then we're still going to see some use cases, or some users just being priced out and using or preferring to use some other ecosystems or chains.
You had mentioned earlier you got into crypto, into Bitcoin originally, eventually into what is DeFi, because you were thinking about access to financial services that a lot of the world doesn't have. Um,
Yeah.
how good of a job have we done so far? And like, does that ever what do I want to say? Does it ever frustrate you that we're not further along?
I mean, yeah, it's always top of mind for me. That's why I care a lot about meeting users where they are and making sure that we are also building for uh, users in developing economies or emerging economies that like we want. They are the people that really you know will benefit from this technology, from the openness of this technology, from the transparency, etc., etc. So that's always top of mind for me. But I, at the same time, I also recognize that this is very nascent technology. To me, it reminds me of like when smartphones first came out, and there was like only a small set of the world's population that could afford a smartphone.
Right.
And today, as the technology has evolved and become better, and the production mechanisms have also become more efficient, et cetera, smartphones have become accessible for a much broader set of the population, if not the majority of the population. So I recognize that, but yeah, this is always something that I keep top of mind, and that in everything that I do, I try to make sure that we are moving in that direction and that we are building towards that direction. So yeah, definitely been times where obviously we are
Yeah.
not moving as fast, or I feel like we're not moving as fast as I expect, but yeah, always keeping that top of mind. Someone asked me the other day if I felt like the definition of DeFi has changed over time. Now moving more towards we need to be more inclusive and seeking seeking to reach people that otherwise don't have a bank account and things like that. I don't think the definition itself has evolved. I think we're testing the limitations of the technology, and now we need to figure out like new solutions to make sure that DeFi remains open, transparent, inclusive, and that sort of values that I think a lot of us agree and share.
Yeah. Otherwise, we're just repeating the mistakes of the past. One of the bottlenecks for us right now in DeFi is I would love for everyone to be able to move from an exchange to layer 2 or a side chain. And that is a problem right now. I don't know of any exchange that allows you to move funds. Let's say I deposit some fiat, exchange it for some crypto. Like I want to be able to move that directly to L2, because the price, even if you go to Zapper.fi/bridge, you can move funds right now from Ethereum to Polygon. It'll soon be Optimism and Arbitrum and BSC and so on. But you can't do that unless you can pay that, which right now it's about, I've done it a bunch recently, just playing with it, and it's cost me about $10. $10 can be like, if you have $100, like you mentioned, that's 10% of your money. If you have $50, that's 10% of your money. But if we can get them directly from the crypto exchange, which is still the bottleneck of a centralized fiat on-ramp and off-ramp, that will solve some issues. Another thing is just, I'm curious, have you run into any projects working on decentralized fiat on-ramps and off-ramps? Like, I feel like there's the holy grail of a solution for us is being able to circumvent the exchanges, which I think would force their hand to start to work more diligently with L2s and side chains.
Yeah, I've definitely seen a few like working towards that. I think there's other challenges with decentralized exchanges that fiat, obviously it's one of them, but once, like, what happens once you have the fiat on ramp, right? Like, how do you help educate the user that they are now like self custody, like having in self custody and other things. So I think that maybe the success of those projects that have added fiat on ramps might still be affected in a way by these other what we see today as UX hurdles. But yeah, I've definitely seen that, and we've been looking into it as well for Matcha.
Got one more question for you. I think one of the challenges that we talk a lot about at Zapper is, so we want to make DeFi easy and accessible for everyone, but there's a lot of education hurdles that you mentioned. Like, I would love to just have people putting their money into Ethereum to play with DeFi. But the problem is they need to understand how to self-custody first, understand a wallet. And so I would argue there's some rather large education hurdles. As a product manager, whether it's 0x or any other product, I guess, how do you balance the two of, like, you need to make sure that they're informed because of the dangers of losing funds, but at the same time, that presents a huge hurdle in the UX. So
Yeah.
anyway, I'm just curious how you think about it.
Well, I've been super lucky to work with some of, in my opinion, the best designers in the space. They're great designers, and some of the things that we've done. So let me just say this: working with products that are developer focused is quite different from working with products that are focused on end users like retail traders, etc., etc. So I just want to make that differentiation, because in the products that you're working for developers, you don't have kind of like all this fancy stuff, and you still have to kind of like find those educational moments, or how to provide the developer an aha moment, whether it is through the documentation, the guides, or more like content type of thing, where you show them how to, like, how the product is being used by other teams, etc., etc. On the products that are more like retail oriented or user facing, what the team has done is that they've made the interface a lot more intuitive, but also adding like little elements to educate the users, or to like give the user security, or more how do you say, like, transparency of what is going on behind the scenes. So for example, if you go to Matcha, and this is something that I think Matcha was one of the first ones to do this in the space, like when you send the transaction, Matcha will show you this timer while the transaction is being confirmed. So that was made with the purpose of giving the user a sense of security that, okay, something is happening, right? I'm waiting, something is happening. We kind of like gave them cues of like, okay, this is done, you can go check it now here on like Etherscan or whatever. So again, a lot of this has been in part driven by our designers, who are very conscious of, like, this is very new for a lot of users, and how can we make this learning process a lot more friendly for them, without hiding self-custody, or without hiding that there's a lot going on behind the scenes, but at the same time making it easy for them to understand, and always making them feel like they're in control of what's happening, and that they know what is happening, instead of just going blank, and we'll let you know once the transaction is confirmed. So yeah, I think there's a lot, like, the design space is incredibly big and still very much of a wide canvas. And I think that we need to slowly continue to raise the bar of, like, in this design, and how do we make it a lot more friendly, and a lot more, as I like to say, like, you want to make the user like they are in control of what's going on, and that they know exactly what is going on, right? It's otherwise we end up like when you send the ACH and you never know when it's gonna get to the bank account, where it is. It's like, so we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that the user understands what's happening, and we do this by, again, giving them cues, or doing some things in the same design or on the screen that the user is looking at.
Yeah, you've reduced transaction anxiety by doing that. You those notifications on Matcha, we have some similar ones on Zapper. It's just all about letting you know that you did do what you thought you were doing, and that something is in progress. If you go back just a few years, that was very unique. I mean, that wasn't even a standard. I feel like every product I tried, it was like, okay, and I know how to use MetaMask, thank God, and I know how to use Etherscan, and that's what would save me. But then
it's like, here we go, wish me luck.
Yeah. Well, even like Etherscan has become such an incredibly smart tool. Like you can see the price of Ether the day that you transacted. You can click on the cost of your gas, and it'll show you the cost of it today versus then. So, like, I guess point being, like, is that the products have just become that much better designed. And I mean, Matcha.xyz, go check it out. It's one of the prettiest products in DeFi. I think we're right up there with Zapper, but it was worth noting because I thought it got released in what, like the spring 2020? June, yeah. Crazy. Wow. It hasn't even been a year. That is nuts. Oh my gosh. I remember I made a little tutorial on it at the time and was like, why does this matter? Like, I already use Uniswap. Why am I remember going down the rabbit hole of like, why does this make sense? And then it was like, oh, it's like a Google search engine for the best trade. Like, that's cool, so
Okay.
Fulvia,
I'm glad you had that aha moment.
I did, yes. And like you said earlier, if you're a builder, having those aha moments has led to that many more realizing, hey, like I can use this to build better products versus having to like reinvent the wheel versus using your API. Fulvia, anything else that you wanted to cover at all, or anything else you think folks should know about 0x and what you're all building?
I'm just going to make a small plug here. So
Yeah,
we are hiring for a bunch of different roles, including product managers, but also product marketing managers, data engineers, software engineers, Solidity engineers. So yeah, go check it out at 0x.org/jobs or hit me up on on Twitter at Fulvia Morales. And yeah, I'll always happy to talk more about our roles and what we do at 0x.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming on. Like, this was as awesome as what I had anticipated. And yeah, I learned so much from having spoken with you now just a few times about what it means to be a product manager in this space. And I can attest to everyone that it looks more glamorous than it actually is. But so thank you for the work that you do. And just a reminder to everyone, again, all the products that I showed you earlier on Zapper, like the exchange, you can try that at Zapper.fi. The exchange tab is the DEX aggregator. All of our Zaps on the pool tab use 0x API to swap for the best rate if you're zapping into a liquidity pool or vault with an unrelated token. And other than that, make sure you subscribe at tv.zapper.fi. This is 95 episodes of lots of learning to take advantage of. Fulvia, I'm just going to hit the outro video. So we'll be in a green room in a second if you have any questions, but just thank you again. And I
was just going to say, we were talking about like the importance of creating educational content. And I mean, you do an amazing job at this with Yield TV as well as your other initiatives. So yeah, thanks for contributing a lot to this space as well.
I'll thank my bosses at Zapper for supporting us with this. But yeah, everyone, I'm trying to think, when is our next episode? Not quite sure. Maybe I'll just tweet about it. Yeah, not sure. I don't think we'll be doing another episode this week. We're just working on lots of exciting stuff at Zapper to get out. And we actually have another educational project excited to announce soon, but I'll wait to announce that. So anyways, Thanks, Fulvia. Bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.